Hello, I'm Eszter Vajda. Welcome to SAN News, bringing you news, views, and entertainment from the South Asian community in the United States. We are on the campus of the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and I'm so pleased to be joined by the new Chancellor, Dr. Kumble Subbaswamy. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So how has it been adjusting here? You were the provost at the University of Kentucky, came here to Amherst in August?
July.
July, and how's it been adjusting?
Oh, it's been wonderful. You know, I've always been around college towns, and being in arguably the best college town in the United States is sort of an easy transition for me. People have been very open and welcoming, and so I've had an easy time adjusting. It's a great campus, very energetic town, and I'm happy to be here.
What is your vision for the school?
This is the flagship of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it has a rich history of serving the Commonwealth, going back to its roots 150 years ago as Massachusetts Agricultural College. So as we look forward to the next 150 years, really making the university continue to be an asset of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and whether you go to school here or not, that in fact it helps and serves in a very important way the Commonwealth's economy and cultural existence is something that I think people sometimes lose track of because unlike in some other states, there are these outstanding world-class private institutions in this state, but that doesn't in any way reduce the impact of the public flagship campus. And so really building that image, improving the quality, and being even more relevant in the life of the Commonwealth is really my vision for the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
I read somewhere that you said that you wanted to be the chief fundraiser, and certainly the school hasn't reached its goals for fundraising. How do you hope to change that?
We have not yet launched a fundraising campaign, and in fact, in terms of annual goals, in fact, our campus has more than met its goals. So the overall system, I think you may be referring to a news item that suggested that the full system didn't achieve its goal, but actually UMASS Amherst, as the flagship campus, has no trouble reaching out to its alumni and friends. In fact, I mean, basically, if you look at public education, public higher education in this country, over the last 20 years or so, and especially in the last 5 to 10 years in the recession, state investment in the public research universities has been on decline. And so private fundraising is even more important than it ever was before. And to a large extent, we find ourselves in similar situation to private universities in that increasingly higher education is dependent on other sources of funding than simply public funds. And so we will be, as a part of the 150th anniversary of the university, launching into a fundraising campaign to make sure that the university is in good shape in order to improve its quality and impact on the Commonwealth.
You mentioned a knowledge-based economy. Certainly, it's been a global knowledge-based economy. What is your relationship, or how do you see your relationship with the private sector in developing curriculum that prepares students for this new workforce?
I think that, again, as the flagship of the Commonwealth, it is our job to produce workers and leaders, in fact, who can be effective in the global economy. And as you mentioned, certainly in the knowledge economy, the resources are human resources. And so particularly the Asian countries have so much by way of educated workforce, especially technologically prepared workforce, that it is a global phenomenon. And so we make sure that our students have that kind of an exposure. We have a long history of working closely with industry, especially in engineering, in the life sciences, and in computer science. And a lot of our alums are leading players in the world, including, for example, one of the directors of the IITs in India, in Mumbai, is one of our alums. And so we've always played in that arena. We have more than 2,200 international students on campus right now, of which approximately a quarter of them are from South Asia. So, we have always played as a global player in education, and we're working even more closely with industry precisely to give training of a relevant sort to our students, and as well as to do research and help the industry.
What's the future of university education and curriculum? Is it going to remain this knowledge-based math, science, the STEMs? Do you see that continuing in the next 5, 10 years?
I mean, I think that, you know, the American education model has always been a very broad-based education, because we recognize that the undergraduate core curriculum involving humanities, involving the arts, involving the social sciences is critically important as the foundation for the changing society. I mean, I think that it's even though your technical field may be computer science or what have you, whether you're writing new game software, knowledge of history, knowledge of literature, knowledge of theater, all of that goes into those kinds of fields. And so nowadays, it's not enough to simply be only technically savvy. You need to have a broad-based education. So what you get at a research university like ours is indeed the broadest possible education. And so while it's true that a lot of the technological advances do depend on technical fields, the overall progress and overall contribution to economy comes from having that broad background.
What do you see the role of online teaching, online learning?
Certainly value added, there is no question, but that as we look at the cost of education and the effectiveness of education, we see that online education is an additional mode that comes in handy in terms of reaching those populations that don't have access to face-to-face education. Is it completely replaceable for face-to-face education? I think face-to-face education, especially in the 18 to 22-year-old range, has so much more than simply a dissemination of information aspect to it. It is really an opportunity for the youth, adolescents, to come into their own value systems, learning how to work in teams, learning how to express themselves and find themselves, that I think residential campuses like ours will always be in demand and have value. But we certainly will utilize online education both to reach those populations that can't come to our campus, as well as to give our students multimodal educational platforms.
You mentioned the cost of education certainly has gone up. As you know, you have 2 children in the not in this system, but in higher education. And there's been a lot of discussion about Pell Grants and the role of Pell Grants. Where do you see the role of Pell Grants?
Yeah. First of all, as someone who grew up in India, especially at a time when it was really a highly stratified society, and in what family or what caste you were born influenced so much in terms of what opportunities you had. One of the things that I cherish about this country is the fact that it strives to be a classless society. And I think that the danger, the advantage of the various programs we have, government programs such as the Pell Grants and other supplementary support programs that we have, is that we make it possible for students, regardless of which zip code they were born in, to have the highest quality education in a public university, or sometimes in a private university as well, and become leaders and have that opportunity for upper mobility. I think that's where the Pell Grants and other such programs really become important. We have a significant number of first-generation students still. Even though our class quality is going up, we are very conscious about making sure that we provide opportunities regardless of the ability to pay. And so a significant percentage of our students still come from first-generation college students as well as Pell Grant recipients. And that's an important part of the DNA of UMASS Amherst, if you will. And so, no, we will continue to find ways to make sure that the opportunities that are unique to us are afforded to students from all economic walks of life.
And I mentioned that you have 2 children in higher education. One of them is in medical school, another one is freshman, and your wife Mala lives here. Right. Are you feeling a little empty nester?
Absolutely. I think in a certain sense this is a new adventure for both of us. But being actively engaged in the life of the campus, at one level, yes, we're empty nesters, but on Hillside, the Chancellor's house, we're surrounded by thousands of students who are away from home, and so interacting with them gives us, again, in a sense of being surrounded by youngsters. And so no, we certainly enjoy being on campus. I think it might have been a little more difficult if we weren't living on campus. So both my wife and I are excited to be around students, and we understand at one level what the parents are going through. So when we talk to parents as they leave their children, their kids on campus, we're able to relate and comfort them, so to speak.
You were born in Bangalore.
In Karnataka, near Bangalore.
And you studied physics.
Right.
There, tell us a little bit about your childhood in India.
I grew up in a, what you would describe as middle class, and so education was more important than anything else, and that's sort of the family expectations, and most of my cousins became engineers or doctors. That was sort of the two traditional pathways, because this was during the socialist governments. I mean, at least socialism and the capitalism had not taken root, and so your opportunities were working in the public sector, factories, or in healthcare, and so those were the two traditional paths. But I was spending some time until I was able to take a national exam. You had to be 16 years old to take a national exam to get into the IITs. And so I had 1 year that I had to wait. And so I took some physics classes and signed up in a bachelor's program in physics. And I loved it. I had wonderful teachers, and I decided that that was my true love and stayed in physics thereafter and didn't look at engineering. Then your pathways were either to, again, go into government service, Indian administrative service, or you went abroad to get advanced degrees and go into a research career, and that's the path I chose. And this country has opened doors for me after graduate school, and I've been very fortunate to live the American dream, if you will. And so part of my commitment in education comes from trying to make those opportunities available for a lot of others. And I've really enjoyed my career so far, and I look forward to a fruitful career here as well.
You said you were in India 2 years ago. How often do you go back? Do you still have a lot of family there?
Every couple of years. It's sort of difficult these days to find the length of time to go and truly enjoy. But
it's a long flight.
It's a long flight, and also in the kinds of jobs that I currently hold or have been holding in the last 2 years, few years, it's really difficult to be away for a long time because you then come back to such a big backlog. But a lot of my nephews and nieces are in this country. My sister lives in this country, and there's a lot more mobility from India now in this direction as well. So we have people coming to visit as well. So yes, the changes are many, and every time I go back, more of the landmarks seem to be missing in Bangalore. And
what has been the most striking change for you?
I mean, I think it's really seeing the prosperity, certainly in and around Bangalore, grow. I think that it is clear that there is a burgeoning middle class. I think the changes and the more opportunities, capitalistic opportunities that began to take hold starting in the 90s really is very noticeable for somebody who grew up and left India in the 70s. Is that people are very entrepreneurial. There's a lot of energy, dynamism, and everyone is thinking in terms of starting their own business, which when I was growing up, it was unthinkable. And so, I think that entrepreneurial spirit and the ability to do anything, at least the hope that they can really achieve great goals is something that's very satisfying to see.
Why do you think children in middle school, high school, outperform American students in those important areas that are key to the global economy?
A couple of observations. I think that there's no question in my mind, but that still, by and large, the K-12 education system in this country is far superior to, say, like in India. I mean, this is not to say there aren't pockets, but there are, a lot of private schools is where you get the really good education in India, and everyone strives to send their children to private schools. The public education system here is a really good one. Partly, I believe it is one where we sort of don't have a culture of high expectations. To some extent, I was always amazed that even middle class families would say, "Oh, mathematics is difficult. We understand. I couldn't do math, so it's okay if you don't do math." You know, that kind of a message subliminally, I think, lowers expectations. Whereas when I was growing up, even if you know, your family members weren't good at mathematics, they expected that you would do well in math. Whether you're going to be a mathematician or not, that's not the issue. The issue was mathematics was one of the requirements, and you're going to do well in it. And so in that sense, I would like to see a change in attitude about science and math. I think even for science, sometimes there is a you know, almost sort of religion-based reservation in much of the country about, you know, evolution or what have you. You don't see that in Europe. You don't see that in, say, in any part of Asia, really. And so I think part of it is attitude, in my opinion. I think that we need to make science fun. We need to indicate that that's an expectation. Just like you learn English, you also learn science and math. And if we can raise that expectation and not somehow apologize for science or math, I think we'll do better. And of course, teacher preparation is an important issue. Again, places like, you know, UMASS Amherst not only produce research, good teachers, but they also do research on effective ways of training teachers and teaching. And all of that, I think, will play an important role in transforming this country going forward as well.
I read somewhere that this country, the United States, does a great job doing research in how to prepare teachers, but actually implementing, the rest of the world is using the research done here.
Again, to me, that comes down to societal expectations, family expectations, because in those formative years, it is not just simply the function of the schools or what happens inside the classroom. So much of it is really based on peers, based on family, what happens outside of the classrooms, that I think it's too much to expect that the schools alone can bring about all the change. And I think if you know, look at a country like Korea, it's expected that everyone gets a college degree, so you have 80% of the population, you know, getting college degrees. And so I think respect for education and perseverance, and that you stick with it, is something that we need to instill, along with all the wonderful things that we discover about effective ways of teaching and effective modalities of teaching.
Okay, I want to ask you two questions that I got from Facebook. Okay. I asked people what they would want to ask you, and Sandra Bark, and she's a teacher, she wants to know, public school must keep high standards to ensure an excellent education and be accessible to all students. We have an enormous problem in admitting and retaining students from our poorest communities. How does he plan to support these students? You mentioned it a little bit, but go ahead and address it again.
Land-grant universities, public research universities can engage in a couple of different ways. You know, I think one is at the research level we talked about, is that certainly we have, you know, sociology departments, we have education departments. So there are people who are interested in understanding the family dynamics and understanding at the educational level what works, and school policies and so forth. So I think that there is, at that level of affecting policy, there is one engagement. But I think in terms of directly influencing, one is really to start educating students at the very early stages about what the expectations are to be able to come to a place like UMass Amherst, because we want students to succeed at the highest level. And we will take care of the financial aspect, but the motivation and the work ethic has to come from the students and their families, so educating both students and families. So I think, you know, we're really have several partnerships, for example, in the Springfield area, in the Holyoke area, which really are, again, have school districts that are underperforming. So we're engaging with them both in terms of our students, in terms of service learning, also in terms of our faculty members, to see how we can be of help in helping the teachers become better teachers, as well as in helping the families pay more attention to education. And at the financial aid level, we certainly always increase our financial aid to, as the cost of education goes up, to make sure that we remain accessible. So I think it's at multiple levels. We are an important part of the solution, but we're not the only solution, I think.
Tim Sullivan from Boston says UMass just hired a brand new men's ice hockey coach. In light of the circumstances which unfolded at Boston University with their hockey program, is the Chancellor concerned about the role of UMass athletics in the macro sense, and or about UMass students athletes in the micro sense?
Sure. I mean, I think absolutely every college president, every chancellor is deeply concerned to make sure that athletics remain a positive force on campus and on campus life and not become a distraction. To put things in perspective, for UMass Amherst, our athletic budget is less than 4% of our total operating budget. But of course, in terms of news coverage, it is significantly more than 3 or 4%. I think that Amherst has a long history. I mean, it has a 130-year history of playing football, in intercollegiate football, and there have been no major scandals and that sort of thing. And so we really, I think, have a culture here on this campus of putting athletics always in balance. Is there, a danger that things can get out of hand, especially if you have highly successful programs? There is always that possibility that you lose track of how how delicate that balance can be. But I think, again, given the faculty oversight, given the nature of our athletic program and its reporting responsibilities, we will always be mindful of the pitfalls, and we will always be careful. But I certainly understand that, in terms of what happened at BU or what happened at Penn State, you've got to be very mindful of the tail of athletics not wagging the dog of the university.
And finally, what advice or what words did the former chancellor give you before you took this position? Any warnings?
No. I mean, I think that, certainly in general, when you're operating in a high-profile position, as this one or similar ones, and you're operating in a multi-campus climate, as a public university, there are so many stakeholders, both on campus and off campus. It's quite easy to please one and displease the other. You're constantly making decisions or policies and making statements such as, what I'm doing in this interview, where things can easily be misinterpreted. There are many who are sort of single-issue politics pursuers, and they will only look at everything from one side, where things are very complex. So in that sense, the advice was, be mindful of all the stakeholders and tread carefully, and I'll do my best in that regard.
Dr. Subbaswamy, thank you so much. That's our show. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you tune in for our next episode of SAW News.